Challenging, thought-provoking, insightful. This is God in Country, the collision of faith and politics, hosted by nationally known speaker, Reverend Dr. Shawn Michael Greener. Not your typical Rev. Dr. Shawn is a proud military veteran, former law enforcement officer, and founder of the internationally regarded Executive Protection Team. Through counseling, elite life coaching, and national speaking, this ninja pastor tells it like it is. This series is biblically and politically engaged with the pedal to the metal. With today's edition of God in Country, here is host and author of the acclaimed yet controversial book, Excellence Killed the Church: How Mediocrity is Destroying America, Dr. Shawn Michael Greener.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. We always love when people from all around the world look in on us, and it's an honor to have you. I know there's a bazillion things that you could be doing other than sitting in front of your computer or plugged into earplugs. You could be out, well, you know what? I was going to say you could be out running or exercising, but really with today's technology, you could be exercising, running, doing whatever, and listening to the show, depending on how good your internet is. And I hope your internet is great tonight because we want you to be able to listen. It's an important message. First off, let's just say I really want to, and we haven't said this in a while, but we really want you to write down our brother Don, write his name down and be praying for him. And my good friend Chris Cahalan, my good brother and friend Chris Cahalan, they're in big fights. So remember that. Very important. Christmas time. I don't know when it is, but when is it? Next Monday. It's next Monday. A week from tomorrow. I won't know what that is tomorrow. So, but Christmas is coming. You tell me it's a week from tomorrow, and I believe you. So the question is everybody ready for, or, I guess the more important thing is, are you ready to celebrate Christmas? Right? How do you celebrate Christmas? Right? You celebrate it every day, the birth of Christ every day. That's the deal. But we have all kinds of other stuff that we have to do right around Christmas too, right? We got to deal with struggles. For my Gold Star families that are listening right now, I want you to know how important you are, not just to me, but to everybody. And the Michael Strange Foundation, if you're going to give a gift to support an organization that does great work, they would be great. It's michaelstrangefoundation.org. Angie always knows. And so if you're going to do that, be thinking of them. Awful tough. How many people in the room have lost somebody right around Christmas? Yeah. I remember I lost my pop-up literally right before Christmas. Devastating thing. Pop-up Covington. Great man, Henry Covington. And it was a shock. Totally unexpected. And we're just, it's just one of those things that we, you can't get through life without experiencing stuff, right? And one of two things can happen. But by the way, and I know this may, to folks that aren't animal people, I know this might seem strange to you, but my prayers go out to several of my really good friends. I'm so fortunate. I think of myself how fortunate I am. Just when I feel low and sad about certain things, all I need to do is talk to one of my friends all around the country. I'm just so fortunate. I really, really am. And so, that being said, and thank you everybody for tuning in. I forgot to open up. Chat is open. There we go. So if you're listening, feel free to click into chat if you'd like. I will tell you this. Ultimately, it comes down to this, really and truly. I'll tell you the truth. My dog, to me, is like a family member. Not like a family, is a family member. God forbid the day when she passes. I'm better off passing right before her. She can get on better without me than I can without her. But the fact of the matter is, many of my friends, very good friends, one, in fact, and I didn't even know this could happen, just lost their dog Suddenly, she was laying in her lap, and I think it was 12 or 13, but perfect health, great veterinary care, and all of that. And she was petting her and looked down, and the dog's eyes kind of opened a little bit, and she passed. She had just passed, no indication what was what. And then another friend, their sweet dog had been sick for a while and was a pretty young dog. And it really is. A lot of people think that we kind of it's not a real loss. It's not a real loss, but it is a real loss. And for some people, especially people that live alone, that their pet is really their lifeline. It's devastating, and I had that happen. One senior citizen friend that I have, he is almost 80. He'll be 80 in a couple of weeks, and his little dog passed away unexpectedly as well. So they're very devastated, and I know that they listen, and I want you to know that we take that seriously. That's a real thing, and I understand completely. So, how to be strong? I thought about this and thought about this and thought about this, and I really I don't know if you've noticed, but over the past several months, my sermons and messages and speeches have been much more personal, much more introspective, and wanting to share the results of that with you. And now, in seminary, they will tell you not to do that. They'll say leave your personal stuff out of it. They'll say your personal concerns, your fears, your hurts, habits, and hang-ups. There's certain things that a pastor should never share with their congregation. They just are. And there are other things that I think we do our congregation a disservice. You can look at me and tell I'm not perfect. You can be around me even a little bit and tell very easily that I'm not perfect. And you can also be around me a little while and tell that even though I might not be strong on a particular day, if you ask me how I'm doing, great, doing great. Right? We do that all the time. But here's the thing, what had occurred to me today is even though we're struggling, it may actually be that we are still strong. My buddy Chris, super strong person. His faith is strong. His love for his family is strong. His love for his brothers like me is strong. Always trying to encourage, and he's really in it. Don, great example. Always wanting to know, how are you doing, brother? I just want to remind you that I'm praying for you. He's going through a lot harder stuff than I am. Sometimes when we're weak, we're a lot stronger than we think. It's just one of those crazy things. And I thought of this, and this is a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Sorrow looks back. Worry looks around. Faith looks up. And several of the photos, we sell our work on this website. If you go to Facebook and go to About, you can see the Pixels page where we sell our work. And one of the photographs I have is of me laying on my back. You don't know the way that I did it, but the way I achieved it is I laid on my back and I took a photograph straight up into the trees. And it gives you that unique perspective. I like to look differently at different things. I like to change my perspective a little bit. Sorrow looks back, worry looks around, faith looks up. Now that sounds like a bumper sticker if you had a big enough bumper, like if you had a Chevy truck. Ford truck probably wouldn't be able to handle it, but I have Ford trucks. I love my Ford truck. It'll handle it fine, but the only thing I think goes on, I think the only thing on mine is an AMSOIL bumper sticker, and the Michael Strange Foundation DevGru Punisher thing. I think that's the only thing I have on mine. And Liberty University, I think I have on there. And I'll just say it does. It's a great quote. I don't know how many of you read the great works anymore. It seems like it's something that doesn't happen in schools anymore, sadly. They're not teaching cursive, and they're not teaching people how to read the really, really great works. Sorrow looks back, worry looks around, and faith looks up. My goodness, you couldn't get a better saying nowadays. That struck me because I've talked to probably 10 or 15 people this week, just this week, that I've said, how you doing? Normally very strong people. And they say, boy, we're in a real fix. I have a friend I grew up with. She grew up not that far down from me, Love Creek. Number two, work on my photography page that's viewed the second most times is Sunset on Love Creek. That's number two. Sunrise in Heaven is the first one, and then number two is Sunset on Love Creek. And she lived, if you were to look at that picture, she lived just to the left of that picture. If you look to the left of that picture, you're going to see where she lived and grew up, and we were all very close friends. Her whole family and my family were very, very close friends. And was diagnosed at stage 4 cancer just recently, and she's in the fight. I mean, she's just lost her hair. Seemed like she's not that far along in chemo and lost her hair. I think this is her third or fourth round with it, third or fourth bout with cancer. And she was really disappointed that it came back. She was very hopeful that it wouldn't. And so then I've talked to other people who one fella lost his wife, 55 years old, lost his wife. She was 52, my age. And I talked to him a lot. And then one of my good friends that I really enjoy talking to, he just found out he has cancer, and he's not going to have any treatment or anything like that. I mean, it's just terrible. And then I talked to my mother, my sweet mom. I talked to her today. And, it's a struggle for her, and the holidays are tough. Right? And I talked about that last 2 weeks. You might think, man, you're beating a dead horse. But this is a different step, right? I like to take steps that progress. Sometimes we do go backwards. If we're being honest, don't we? Sometimes we do go backwards. I don't think we should be so silly as to think that we are always making upward or onward progress. Sometimes the best progress we can make is to stand still. Right? Sometimes that is the deal. You've got to just in a military and post-military experience, we had a saying, survive the next 30. Survive the next 30. 30 seconds, 30 minutes, 30 hours, whatever it takes, survive the next 30. Make it to that next step. Sometimes just staying static is better than going backwards, falling backwards. But you know what? I figured this out this week, and maybe I figured it out before, but I have a brain injury, so I forgot. So I relearned it. And that is that sometimes when we go backwards and we take a real beating, that is absolutely the very best thing that we can do, because it forces us to realize. Anybody ever say it's all good? It's all good. Something rough, difficult, challenging will happen, and then they'll finish and they'll say it's all good, or it'll be fine, it'll be all right. I'll make it. Whatever the case may be. Those little sayings, those little also bumper sticker sayings. I thought about that because I thought, how many times do we say that and we think that saying that in and of itself is enough to either help us stay still or move forward just a little bit to get out of the thing. Power of positive thinking, right? We got a lot of power of positive thinking going on in the world today, and I'm a big fan of it. My influences are Zig Ziglar. You couldn't do better. He's now in heaven. Selling. He's selling in heaven. I'm sure he's selling something in heaven, right? And then you've got Tony Robbins. A lot of people are real familiar with him. I've had the pleasure of spending quite a bit of time with him in a group of 12 other people. And one of the greatest privileges of my life, and truly one of the greatest people I've ever met in my life. And I've had the chance to be with great people and that I'm personal friends with, and I look around and I think how fortunate I've been. As I'm at this stage in my life, I'm not that old, but I'm 52, and at this stage in my life, I think, man, I've been fortunate. I mean, I have good friendships and relationships with some really amazing people, not just because they're famous, but because they're amazing. You know what's really interesting is I'm friends with people who aren't at all famous, but I think are the most, in my mind, the most famous people ever in the world because they're the greatest. Really, really fortunate. And I have, I've given myself a chance to think over some stuff and think over, let me interrupt myself here. and I think this is important, and I often will say, well, you don't have to answer this by raising your hand, just kind of, to yourself. How many people think that the trajectory of our country is improved now or getting worse? Is it declining or is it improving? You show your hands. People in chat are speaking up. Hey, Linda, we just mentioned Chris, by the way, I'm praying for him. Improving. So we got some folks here. Thank you for joining us, Linda. We really appreciate it. Hello to you and all the Kalen family. And we love you, the whole family. We definitely do. Raise your hand again. Just be real obvious about it. We think it's improving. How many people think we're on a downslope?
Well,
Overall, obviously we're on a downslope.
spiritually and morally.
We're still. It's either going to be one
Yeah.
or the other.
It's going to go one way or the other. So you would say we're teetering.
It would take a long time to go this way, but one little thing.
Oh, she's been reading my notes. Hold on, folks. She snuck in and she read my notes. What Angie just said is very important. It's going to take, and for the radio audience, it's going to take a long time of the upward trajectory for us to get back to even. And I'm going to say this to you. I could probably stand to lose 20 pounds. I bet I could. Maybe more. I don't know. Y'all are looking at me going, you're very conservative. I was thinking 50, but whatever.
No, you're looking good. I was
Talk about the power of positive thinking. Boy can't count. I was diagnosed a few weeks ago by a neuropsychologist with dyscalculia. Anybody ever hear that? Dyscalculia. You know what that means? Can't count. Can't count, can't calculate, can't do numbers, chronology, all that stuff. We knew something was up, didn't we? So Angie's really said it. I mean, that's really true. And we look at weight is a big thing. I look at people. I've known people that are 600 pounds. I've been close personal friends with someone that was 600 pounds, and he wasn't 12 and a half feet tall. He was shorter than me by maybe 6-8 inches, and I'm just under 6'4", so he was wider than he was tall probably. He had dealt with weight problems. He had a major disappointment happen in his life when he was a teenager, and I mean it was a major one. It was a real bad situation. And it happened to him. It's a real thing that happened to him, and it was real devastating. And you know what? He said, when we talked real honest about it, he said, I'm going to tell you what happened. I started eating my feelings, my hurt, my fear, my hurts, habits, hang-ups. I just put them into whatever kind of food I could eat. And before long, I was eating, 3-4 pounds of bacon every morning, 2 dozen eggs every day in the morning. He'd eat 3 half gallons of, back when it was actually a half gallon of ice cream, 3 half gallons every single day. And Timmy, great guy, super smart. But you know what he said to me? One day I said, listen, man, I'd sure like to help you. This is years ago, years and years and years ago. I'd sure like to help you with this. Has anybody ever talked to you about this? Has anybody sat down with you? He says, no, to be honest with you, people try to pretend that they don't see me or smell me because he smelled bad. Rode in my car one time back then, and honest to goodness, I could not get the smell out. Honestly. It was a terrible, terrible thing. Someone just reminded me that's listening around the country today, going back to kind of how we feel. We're economically upward, but we're socially backward, right? We're going backwards big time. Our economy is doing well, and we hope, in a rising tide, all boats rise. And that's what we're hoping for and praying for. I mean, you gotta pray for this president. I've never seen anybody under an assault. I don't know how he comes every day leaving that residence door with such a positive attitude, but he does. And so we need to pray for him every day. Here's the thing, folks. My buddy Timmy, he literally 600 pounds, and he said they try not to look at me and they try not to act like they smell me, but I know that they do. There's only so much he could do, 600 pounds. Can't get in the bathtub anymore. One time he tried to take a regular shower, and he broke the tub and almost fell through the floor. Yeah. He rode in his deceased father's car. He was going to take it to get it inspected. He sat in the seat, and he broke the seat. The seat went all the way back, so he had to drive trying to hold himself up. Now, of course, it's a tough thing. I mean, 600 pounds is heavy, right? And so I was talking to him, and I said, is there anything I can do to help you? I mean, what can I do to help you? I want to help you. He said, well, you've helped me a lot by just looking at me. You look at me. You talk to me. You talk with me. You've even had the boldness to ask me without, he said, I've had people say to me before, why don't you just eat less? Gee, I didn't think of that. That's super smart. Wow. I wish I had you around more. Right? They never ask what caused it. What hurt, habit, or hang-up caused it. And I'm going to tell you, when he told me, I didn't know the story. I'd known him for years. And when he told me the story of what happened to him when he was a young boy, teenager, it was devastating. Brought me to tears. And I'm a hardened dude. I mean, I've been in the military, post-military, police, you name it. I've seen some horrible stuff, more than most people would ever want to see. And he told me a story, and I just couldn't believe it. I said, brother, is that a true story? He goes, every word. So we were talking, and I was talking about how sometimes, that trajectory. Angie said, we got so far to go before we get back to level. And I said to him, do you have a concept of how much you weigh? He said, the last time I got weighed was 2.5 years ago, and I think I've gained between 100 and 200 pounds since then. I said, in a year and a half, 2 years. He said, yep. I said, how did you get weighed? He said, my brother and I were at a cattle rendering place, and they had this big scale. And he stood on the scale, and he said, that's the only thing I've ever been able to measure myself on in years, and I never wanted to. But he said, I felt like I ought to at least have some idea. And I said, how much was that? He said, that was right under 600 pounds. So who knows how much he weighed. What did it do to you to see that weight? And Timmy told me, he said, Shawn, it didn't do probably what you thought, what you think it would do. He said, you know what it did? It just told me, if I lose 100 pounds, nobody will notice. If I lose 200 pounds, I'll still be over 400 pounds. If I lose 300 pounds, I'll still be so significantly overweight, the medical doctors would still describe me as being morbidly obese. I could lose 300 pounds and not really dramatically change my life. No woman is going to look at me differently. They're still going to look at me as, my goodness, look how fat that guy is. And I said, do you really believe that? Do you really genuinely believe that that's your lot in life? And he said this. He said, when you're looking at such a big number, when you're looking at such a giant number, it's virtually impossible to be strong. So I said, so what do you do when you think about that? What do you do? He said, I just eat. He said, I don't have any concept how much I eat. I said, how about you start writing it down? He said, I couldn't do it. I'd fall to the ground. He said, if I fall, I can't get back up. Interesting thing is the bed that he slept in, those metal beds, metal frames, bent it right in half. Bent it right to the floor. To get out of bed was such a challenge for him. I said, have you ever thought what's going to happen to you if you don't get strong? If you don't find a way to get strong, what's going to happen to you? He said, in one sense, on the rare occasion that I go outside, I'm hoping that I die outside. I said, why is that? You really love the outdoors? He goes, well, I do love the outdoors, but I want to die outside so that the paramedics don't have to figure a way to maybe get me out of the house. I don't want any of them getting hurt trying to lift me. So I just really prefer to die outside. That way I'm there and nobody has to really deal with anything. My heart broke for him. It broke for him. Some people would look at him and go, you did this to yourself. If they knew his story, they'd realize that's not the case. You say, well, he just needs to be stronger. And I thought of that this week. This really got to me on Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember what day it is now. I guess it's Sunday if I'm here preaching. Wednesday or Thursday, I don't remember which it was. I started to think about the struggle some people have. Not to get ahead, to just be strong enough to stay still, not to go any further back. I mentioned about the United States being being strong in the face of great storms, it is inarguable. It is absolutely inarguable that we're in exciting but very challenging times, right? We are in very, very challenging times. We've got North Korea, right? In 2018, early 2018, we're sending our best and brightest winter athletes to South Korea. Do you know where most of them will be competing? Will be 40 to 60 miles from the border of North Korea. Lest you laugh at that goofy guy's haircut, lest you laugh at him, he's insane. And he's bent on world destruction. And he literally believes that he would live through it. His country would live through it. 300,000 to 400,000 people a day, or a year die of starvation in North Korea. Take a look when you get home, or maybe if you're sitting at home, not if you're driving, and look up the square miles of North Korea. And then look up the population and realize that's horrible. That is a genocide. And the fact of the matter of it is, he's killing them by starving them to death. Then you think about how many more are dying every year. Many of them are family members. You know, his top general hasn't been seen in months. His top general hasn't been seen in months. And you know, with him, when you're not seen for a while, you know what that means? The worms know where you are, but that's about it. So we've got exciting, but we've got challenging times. Our economy in the United States, he's what? Yeah, for sure. We are in very exciting and very challenging times, but it is inarguable that the challenging part of the exciting is very scary. And I thought to myself this week, you know what? We as a country really need to get strong. There's a lot of whining and crazy business going on. Great things are being done in the United States, and the reason great things need to be boldly done in America is because we have been in severe, as you talked about, it's going to take us really, we're going to have to keep the pedal to the metal in order to climb up to where we were. We've been in severe decline for so many decades, haven't we? The world is indeed a violent and complex place, and in that violence and complexity, there too comes the makings of struggle and loss in that complex life. In this world lately, I'll tell you the truth, up means down and down means up. Good means evil and evil good. Far too many horrid lies in this world. And when the politicians, the journalists, and the people you trust the most lie to you, ridicule you, it's hard to be strong, isn't it? Life has its beauty and it has its ugly. Living well and easy with the well and easy as well. Easy. It's the ugly we struggle the most with. In order to kill the ugly, you got to be strong. And so how do you do that? So that's the purpose of this message tonight. First of all, let me say this. There's going to be some scriptures that I read and relate to you. And I'd encourage you, if you're not driving, to write them down. Just write, you don't have to write the whole scripture down. Just write the name of it down, the citing of it. In every one of these, I want you to know that the Hebrew word for strong is chazak, or chazak. And that is, in Hebrew, strength that we're talking about here. It's the enduring strength. It's the strength with help. It's the strength with guidance. It's the strength of numbers. It's the strength of being lifted and emboldened. But it's a strength that only comes when we trust in another. Interesting. Absolutely fascinating. Be strong to possess God's possessions, as he urged upon Joshua. That's Joshua 1:6. Be strong to possess God's possessions, as he urged upon Joshua. Joshua 1:6. Let me say this about that. You know, we say very often that we have it easier, or we have it harder than the Bible times. Don't we? We say it often. You know what people didn't have during the Bible times? Thermostats. Physicians. Say again, toilets. What'd you say? Did you say toilets? Toilets. Yeah, simple things like that, right? Everything was difficult. Every single thing was difficult, and the world was so new. Super difficult. And here we are today, and we think that we absolutely have it the hardest, right? We think we have it the hardest, but we don't. But let's think about that statement. Be strong to possess God's possessions, as he urged upon Joshua. What are God's possessions? Right? I like nice cars. My buddy and I were talking last night. He wants to get a new pickup. Right? He's got a great job. He's big wig and he's deserved it. He's worked very hard his whole life. I've known him from biggest chunk of his life. We've been best friends since I think 7th or 8th grade. And I've never seen anybody more generous, give to more people. Nobody even knows the stuff he does, and is in such angst over any little thing he buys for himself. You might say a pickup truck's not something, little, but to him, really and truly, I mean, that comparatively, he never lost being a poor kid struggling and working, after school and all summer. He never lost that. He never lost that work ethic. I always looked at him when I was a kid as the strongest person I've ever known. Truthfully, I mean, he was just strong. He didn't have a great childhood. He and I lived our childhoods together, and believe me, I know, and he knows what our childhoods were like. Possessions back then. How many of you ever can remember before you got your first real job? You said, we were talking about this with my son. Man, what I'm going to get? I get that first. I got that first big paycheck, toss big, what am I going to get? Well, at my reward, I'm going to get myself this or that. Probably a silly thing. Now, his list isn't silly. They're all good stuff. But I remember as soon as I get a job, now I was 13 years old, and in my household, you had to work full time in the summer. That's the age you started working, and that's just how it was. Tell you the truth, I didn't lament it back then, because you know what I liked? I liked having money. So at age 13, I started buying all my own clothes, and anything I wanted, I bought. But you know what? I made this mistake early on, and maybe you did too. I bought, and it only lasted about a month, that I bought cheap crap. I did. I said, my money will go further. I don't need real fancy. I need cheap crap. It'll last. It'll be fine. I'll just take care of it. It'll be no worries. You know what I learned about cheap crap? The reason cheap is followed up with crap is because it's crap and it doesn't work. And it doesn't last. And so you waste your money. So then at that point, at age 13, I learned a very valuable lesson, which is buy good stuff. Maybe you have to wait a little longer, but buy good stuff because it lasts, especially if you take care of it. But that was the thing. I wanted not a bunch of stuff. I remember I played soccer. I was a competitive soccer player, and I wanted really nice cleats. When I got to high school, I really wanted really nice cleats. And I was surprised to learn, back then we didn't have the internet. Back then, I did my research. I found that the best cleats were the certain kind, and the only place that they had them was in Dover, Delaware. Now, you might think, that's an hour from where you live. Well, that was the closest sports store back then from where I lived. And, I found their phone number in the phone book. Back then we had phone books. We did. It did something. We had phones back then, the kind that were plugged into the wall. And so I called up Dover, and I talked to the fellow behind there. I said, do you have this kind of cleats? He goes, yes, we do. And I said, do you have the customizable version where you do this thing with my feet and you custom fit them and then you send them off and they custom make them? He said, how old are you? First thing out of his mouth. How old are you? And does your mother know you're calling? I said, well, this is how old I am, and yes, my mother knows I'm calling, and I'll be paying you with my own money. He says, okay. It's $175 for one pair. Well, I never did in the phone book. They don't tell you how much stuff is when you call. It's only when you talk to them or go to the store, and I didn't want to let him know I was stunned, and I knew I could afford it. Not much else, but I knew I could afford it. And I said, you know what, I'm committed to this. Let's see if it helps make me a better soccer player. So I went ahead and did it. And I had those soccer cleats almost through my entire high school career playing soccer. Why? Because they were good. They were excellent. And they were just right for me. That's what God's possessions are. We think our possessions are great. The stuff we think of is great, but it's not. It's not. I don't care if you work 80 hours a week. Whatever stuff you can acquire isn't as good as what God has for you. It just isn't. I learned that the hard way. Be strong to possess God's possessions, as he urged upon Joshua. Let me tell you something. Who in here thinks it's easy to be a Christian? And not a single hand went up in this live audience. Not a single hand. And I don't know about around the world. Let's see here. Hello, Craig. Say hello to Louise for me. Champagne taste on a beer budget, Craig just said. That's right. He learned about that. Champagne taste on a beer budget. Be strong to possess God's possessions, as he urged upon Joshua. You know what they didn't have a lot of in Hebrew houses back then in the Hebrew community? Stuff. They didn't have a lot of stuff. Didn't have a lot of clothes. Remember the scripture where I talk about why it justifies having a firearm or a weapon, and Yeshua was for that, is if you have 2 cloaks, sell one and buy you a sword. Buy you a sword. If you have 2 cloaks. Well, they didn't have a closet full of clothes? Different colors? You ever think about that? Closets were small in the buildings back then. They didn't have them. I'm just kidding. They didn't have them at all. So they didn't have a lot of stuff. They didn't have hardly anything. Only until you got super rich were you super rich, and there were so few that were super rich. The chasm was so big, and people would look at the palace and say, "Wow." That's why they looked at people like gods almost, because it was inconceivable that somebody would be that wealthy and have that much stuff. But God's possessions, here's the crazy thing about this. This occurred to me this week. God's possessions, we really can't see. And you know what? Christmas is awesome, but you can't wrap the best stuff from God. You ever think about that? You can't wrap it. I remember when I'll just tell a story that doesn't reflect well upon me. I'll just do it for fun and for free. No extra charge. When I was in the military, I went to several military schools. And when I was in the military, I was real precision back then. Neat as a pin. Some people would wish I would get neat as a pin again. I used to be obsessive compulsive about cleaning and being clean and tidy and neat and blah, blah, blah. And to have that again for about a month and a half. So here's the thing. I was really good at wrapping Christmas presents. And I was in the military, and all these guys were blowing their paychecks on sending gifts home. This is how I looked at it. Blowing their paychecks on sending a bunch of gifts home. Now, I sent money home every month. I don't want you to think I wasn't to my mother. I felt right about that. I felt good about that. I did it the entire time I was a bachelor in the military. But I had a little business, and I would wrap, package, and mail the packages for these military guys. I was on a predominantly Navy and Marine Corps base. And so these guys, they may be great at a lot of stuff, but they're not great at wrapping and packaging and mailing packages. If they depend on themselves to do it, they're just not going to send it home. And gift cards, right? Who has gift cards? Probably most of you have a gift card in your pocket right now. They didn't have those back then. And so if you didn't give your gift in time for Christmas, guess what? You just as well write a check, and most of those guys didn't have checkbooks. I didn't take checks. I'm going to tell you right now, I took cash money. I like the crinkly money. And so I would charge these guys to wrap the packages, package them, and mail them for them. Do you know I paid for every single gift that I bought that year, and I bought some nice stuff for some nice folk. Bless you. I bought some nice stuff for some nice folk out of the money I made in my spare time, wrapping those packages, mailing them for them. You know what I noticed? That wasn't the great thing about that. You know what I noticed? I could tell how much some people felt about the people that they allegedly loved by the packages they were sending home. I knew some of the higher ranking people. I wrapped presents for senior chiefs and master chiefs, and I wrapped presents for E1. And I would see one fella, brought tears to my eyes. One fella. I couldn't believe the package he was wanting me to send to his mama. He says, Shawn, you got to. I had two nicknames back then, Whistle and Blade, and he said, Blade, you got to do good by this one, man. He said, this is special. I said, who's this for? He said, this is for my mama. I said, brother, this is several $100s. Holy moly, man. You are aware you're at the lowest rank and lowest pay in the entire military. He goes, I'm fully aware. But he said, I'm making more money now than both my parents combined ever made in their life. And I want to send her something special. It's Christmas. I said, okay. I said, got your food covered and everything? Because I think this is probably taking your whole budget. He goes, even if I don't, it'd be worth being hungry. Brought tears to my eyes. You know, I spent about an hour wrapping that present, packaging it so it would be perfect. But I wrote a little note. It's the only one I ever did the whole time I was in the military doing this package wrapping business. Now the IRS will come after me. I wrote a note in there. I said, you know what you should know about this gift is not how much it costs or how much it costs your son. But what you should know about this is how much he loves you. Wrapped with love and care, Shawn. Only one. I bet I wrapped hundreds of presents. This is the only one I put that in there. Why did that have a greater value to her? I heard, after Christmas that she's just going on. It took a position. All right, now this is, all right, I'm just going to say it. How many here, and don't y'all lie, I'll know. How many of you here binge watch A Christmas Story? Say it. Don't lie about it. Before my brain injury, I could recite that whole movie. A Christmas Story movie, yeah. Oh, come on. Ralphie, you'll shoot your eye out? I had the whole... Listen, before my brain injury, I could do every character in time. I would sit and watch it with my daughter, and she would be looking at me going, and for the radio audience, shock face. She would have shock face, and I prefer to think shocked and admiring face. Like, wow, you're a really good voice actor. And how do you know all the lines? But I'm telling you this, that leg, fragile, it's a major award. Remember, right? That leg, the god-awful, hideous leg, and wanted all of his neighbors to see, and Mama, who never got out of her house coat, she closed all the curtains and all this mess. You broke it on purpose. You never liked it. You didn't want me to have it. Right? We think that's a big deal. We think that's a great thing. This woman took the thing that he gave her. It's the nicest thing in her whole house. And she put it up. And he said she told me she actually put rope around it so you couldn't get close enough where you'd accidentally. I said, brother, let me ask you a question. Do you have any other brothers and sisters? He says, none that love Mama like I do. God's possessions. There are no better than God's possessions, right? Maybe you're thinking about the nicest gift you ever got. I can't remember. My family, because of my brain injury, gives me the same thing every day. They wrap it up. Look what we got you. I was like, I was really wanting that. Joshua 1:6. This is the English Standard Version. Be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. Anybody here ever be given land, inherit land? Maybe some of you are going to pass down land. In the radio audience, I'm thinking of a few people right now that one day, when they breathe their last, they are going to pass down an incredible business, an incredible land, and an incredible legacy of achievement and hard work. I think if you raise your kids right, they'll appreciate it. But I personally, you guys know Morty. Remember Morty? Me talking about Morty, my great friend Morty. I mean, he left millions of dollars, millions and millions and millions of dollars to Notre Dame University. He's a Jew. He did not attend Notre Dame. He didn't attend any college at all. Remind me. He didn't attend any college. He just liked them. He says, when I turn on the television, I love to see them playing, and I like the gold helmet. I said, how many football games do you ever watch? He goes, I don't know, a handful, I guess. I don't have time when I'm working. But you want to give him? He goes, well, it's Notre Dame, And I said, well, isn't there a Jewish university you can give to? He goes, where? Show me a Jewish university. Come on. I'll give it to them. They'll be all right. Help the Catholics out. So that was a big deal. And then he gave a bunch of money. I'm thankful about this to St. Jude's, one of my favorite charities. I've been there many, many times. Boy, what a gift. What a huge gift, a legacy. Inherit the land. How precious is Israel to the Hebrew people? How precious is that land? Don't split it up. Listen, I love what President Trump did a few weeks ago in saying, no, I will stand with my brothers and sisters in Israel. I will stand with my Jewish brothers, and we will recognize Jerusalem as the home and the capital of Israel. The land has been watered with blood. There is no greater gift than that, a gift from God. But first, in order to get the gift, in order to be strong, you have to build on that vision of what it is you're being strong for. All right, I'll admit this. I told you look, it's going to get worse from here. But trust me, the stories will get worse. When I was a kid and I started buying my own stuff, I saw a magazine. We didn't get a lot of magazines at our house. I lived in the country. Didn't hardly anything but bills come to our house. We didn't get circulars, but let me tell you what did come. Sears and Roebuck Montgomery Ward catalog. My goodness, I thought that was the greatest thing ever in the world. How many in here ever did that, right? How many of you ever folded down, paid with a little check mark accidentally? You didn't really mean to, but there was 5 of them because you slipped. Hint, hint. Maybe put your name on there just so people would know. Santa, he has he's brain injury, I think. So you got to remind him a lot. So, but when I started buying my own stuff, one time I was somewhere, I can't remember where it was, and I saw this is not a free advertisement for Land's End, but I saw a Land's End catalog in a place, and I picked up that catalog, and I saw those men's clothing there. I said, that's how I want to look. How do I do it? Somebody show me how, right? We couldn't, you would fill out an order form and mail it in with a check. I don't even know if I knew anybody had a credit card. Did they have credit cards when I was little? I don't remember. I never saw one. I know my parents to this day, they didn't have any credit card. But I just knew, my son just sent me a reminder that he would feel very good as a legacy to get my Tecovas boots and one of my weapons. I already gave him to him. I don't know. He's just waiting on me to die. No offense. No offense, Dad. Do well. Take your vitamins. But I saw this Land's End catalog, and I saw a phone number on there, and I'd never ordered anything in my life over the phone. Never had, But I wanted to look like that picture, and I called up, and I talked to a dear lady who helped me out. She helped me out. And we developed a relationship over, I think I've told this story, a relationship over the next several years where I bought my clothes from her. And she helped me know what matched and what wasn't good to get. And, listen, don't order now. There's a sale coming up. You go ahead and mail your check in. I swear I did this. You mail your check in and make it attention to me, and I'll hold on to it in my desk. And when the sale happens, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but when the sale happens, your money will go twice as far. Or you can get better if you want. And she did that. Her name was Jean. God rest her soul. What a wonderful lady. Precious, precious lady. Had the strongest New England accent I'd ever heard in my life. My goodness. But she had me dressed up looking fine. And you know what? I was so proud of my suits of clothes and the different things I'd wear. And I still remember this day. Now, this is what I want you to think about. I don't want you to think about, what happened necessarily. I want you to think about the emotion that I felt and wonder if you ever felt that way. I bought this Land's End jacket one time, right? It was the centerpiece of, when it was a little cool out. And I'll admit, I wore it probably when it wasn't cool enough to wear it, but I wanted to be cool enough to wear it, if you know what I'm saying, if you get my drift. And I played a lot of sports, and I was in the locker room, and I came back to my locker, and it was gone. It was the most money I'd ever spent for one article of clothing my whole entire life. It was gone. Never did find it again. I'm telling you what, I was devastated. I was devastated that someone would take the clothing that I had worked so hard for. Now, let me tell you a quick story. My mother You guys know, in the live audience, you know, maybe around the world you haven't heard this story, but my mother, sweet, sweet lady that she is, generous to a fault, we used to accumulate clothes for the needy, right? And we get boxes and boxes and boxes, and I don't even know how she's tiny, so I don't think she ever really saw out of the rearview mirror anyway, but I don't know, when we put all these boxes in her Plymouth Fury, I think, wagon, or Plymouth some kind of wagon, big giant thing, huge, boxes, she could pack 100 boxes into 5 minutes of space. I'm telling you, she could do it like nobody else I ever saw. And so these boxes, and we would go to this church, all black church, in a very poor section of where we lived, and it was a pretty far drive. And of course, the doors were never locked, and we would go in. She'd play the piano. I'd play the organ. I'd go over and play around on the piano a little bit here and there, and we'd sing hymns, and we'd sneak out. And for many, many years, we did that. And Mom said, and these kids went to my school. She said, if you ever see a kid in your school wearing something that you helped me pack into these boxes and deliver, never say a thing. Just compliment them. Say, man, you look really great today. That's a nice outfit. That's sharp. Oh, what a nice jacket. I thought to myself, I wonder if one of those people in one of my weak moments of my life, not strong, weak, I'd look around here and I wonder if any of these people stole my jacket. If the person that stole my jacket, I wonder if they're wearing clothes that I helped pack. I could let myself get mad for a minute. More than a minute. It's like a month. Inherit the land. That was just a jacket. But in my mind, I literally believed, now I didn't know I would gain about 50 pounds over the next, 5 years. Yeah, I left for boot camp at 163 pounds. I came back from boot camp at 183 pounds. I went to my next Navy school at 183 pounds. I came back at 215 pounds. I went to my next school, and I was 228. I was on a weight gaining. I needed to, too. Boy, I was a beanpole. Beaner, greener. Oh, it was all muscle. 5.9% body fat. Not that I'm bragging. The number, you'd add those numbers together or maybe multiply to get it now. I don't know. For you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. Listen, I thought in my own mind, that jacket, I'm going to hand that jacket. This is how much I thought of their clothing and how well I took care of stuff. I'm going to pass this down to my children. I'm going to pass this down to my children. That's how I was, I'm going to pass this down. Listen, isn't this true? I have shoes that are 20 years old. You look at them right now. I guarantee you, look at those shoes and they'll look new. I have shoes from 2003. From 2003, I have a pair of boots my same best friend, Chuck Backus, bought me in Fin and Feathers in Ohio. Fin and Feathers. I still have those then, and I'll challenge you to look at them and tell me that those suckers aren't the finest boots you ever saw. That's how I was, man. That's how I am. I plan, you saw me wear this hat today. I don't know when I bought this hat. I don't have any recollection of it at all. I just know I like it. And one day my son's going to wear it. Well, he'll have to shrink his head a little bit. The boy's got a big head. He does. Amen. We had to buy him custom helmets to play football. Boy's got a big head. He would tell you, for his brains, all his brains can't fit. Yes, ma'am. Right? Dr. Bonnie is wearing a 1972 sweater. Looks good as new. I love it. Hey, how many of you grew up with antiques in your house? Not because you were rich, but because, mom and dad would go to yard sales and find good stuff and fix it up and put it in your house? That's me. I did that. Now, I would say to you, my sister, this is going off track a little bit. My sister has more stuff. Now, she's the oldest. She has more stuff. She is my favorite sister. Only one I have, but she'd still be my favorite if I had 10. She has most of the stuff. Why? Because she was the first to have a home, and that's where you could put stuff and all that stuff. Lord knows you didn't know where I would end up. Can't give me stuff. But the stuff I have, I treasure it. It's passed down. And you know what? My family's going to inherit it. I can't barely say this without a smile. My daughter is going to inherit boxes and boxes and boxes of books. I never met a book I didn't like. Man, I just love it. Love to feel it in my hands and smell it. And Good lands. Some of those books, I have notes in them. I don't know how anybody could read the book. I've written so many notes. I was so enthralled. Some of those books, I have a brain injury, can't remember last week, but let me tell you something. I've picked up one of these books. It'll trigger a memory, and I'll look at all the writing in it. And I mean, I've turned the book. How many of you ever done that? Turn the book, and my mom's Bible's that way. My Bibles are like that. I'm writing every little open space. Boy, I remember when I was reading that book. I remember one of the times I've broken my nose, I think 6 or 7 times. One of the times I broke my nose was reading a daggone book. I was reading the book. I was walking in the woods, and I had the book stuffed in an inside pocket that was just big enough for my book. And I started to read this book before I stopped walking, and I walked right into a tree, bashed that book right into my nose, and literally broke my nose. I think that was the second or third time, maybe. I love to read. My daughter's going to inherit all those books. And you know what? My family will gladly help her load all of those books up into her little tiny car. They will drive it to wherever she's living and drop them off for her. Here you go, honey. God bless you. Daddy wanted you to have these. And I do want her to have it. She's an avid reader just like me. Inherit, though. Now, so she'll treasure that. My son will treasure, when I pass, one of my particular guns. He'll take any of them, all of them maybe. But he'll treasure this one particular gun, and he'll treasure a pair of boots that I have. All right, 2 pairs. I don't know how many boots. He'll treasure those boots. I don't know how many it is, but he'll treasure them. He's been working all kinds of little deals to make me think I already gave them to him and that I just forgot to hand them to him. That's another thing, brain injuries. Watch your family. They'll try to trick you. He would never do that, he says. Inherit the land. But I know this, all kidding aside, I know that he'll probably shed some tears because he's sentimental like Dad. He'll shed some tears when he puts those boots on the first time. You know, I preached my dad's funeral at the graveside wearing my father's overcoat. Let me tell you something, folks. That was hard to do. That overcoat is still in my closet. And when I wear it, the same tissues that were in it when I inherited it are in that coat. Yep. Because my dad was one for always having a tissue. He wouldn't have a tissue. I don't care. They'll stay in there till I die. Just some things. I tell you what. Inheriting some things. Some stuff that we inherit. I'll tell you another thing. Some of the things that we inherit aren't worth a whole lot of money to other people. But boy, they're worth the world to us, aren't they? How many of you are thinking of something right now that you have in your home that got passed down? You say, man, I'll never let that leave my possession. I'll never allow that to be harmed. I'll never allow that to be damaged. Inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. The only way you can get it is if you're strong and courageous. Man, courage is hard to find sometimes, isn't it? How many of you have ever had a moment where you were actually courageous and it surprised you? My little dog, my dog's not that big. I'll move on right after I tell this story. My dog's not that big. She's maybe 55, 60 pounds. And she's sweet as she can be. I'm telling you, she's the sweetest dog. You all have met her. She's just a love bug. And I remember one time, I thought, my dog would never get in a fight over me. Never, ever. She's sweet as she never met an enemy. Till one time this cat, wasn't it a cat? Kind of posted up on me. We were out walking. Cat posted up on me, arching its back, baring its teeth, making all kinds of satanic sounds. The cat didn't know I'm armed all the time, but whatever. My dog, I saw a blonde streak go flying by me with all kinds of like this. Chased that dog all up and down that neighborhood. Turned around, pranced a little bit, coming back to me, say, "You see what I did, Daddy? Did you hear all that? Did you know I could do it?" Protecting Daddy, man. There's something precious about that. I was like, what? She's really courageous. I didn't know she had it in you. Any of you ever have that where you just, somebody was coming up against your family, or maybe somebody made fun of your, I remember Doyle had a teacher one time and she was real ignorant. She sure was. My goodness. Nowadays she'd be a hero, but she said some stuff, did some stuff. He said, "Now, Dad, I'm going to tell you this." And his mama told me before she told me what she was going to tell me, and she said, "Now, don't you go calling that teacher. Well, we're going to tell you this, but we don't want you to go calling the teacher." Well, I did also call the teacher. I mean, I wasn't being mean, but I was nice and polite about it, but they thought I was going to enlighten into them. I can do it nicely. And boy, I was mad. Made me mad what she did to my son. It wasn't right. It was totally and completely wrong. Maybe somebody threatened somebody that you love. Mama bear. You ever hear that? Mama bear. Mama grizzly. Courageous. Sometimes that courage comes out of places you don't think it's going to come. You couldn't see it coming. Joshua 1:7. Only be strong and very courageous. Now, what in the world we added a very here? Very courageous, being careful to do according to all the law that Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go. Shocked face, Petey Panda, lifting his eyes, going, what in the world? Now we're all the time talking about, I've just got you convinced on courageous, and the Lord throws in very courageous. Only be strong and very courageous. Listen, this doesn't have a thing in the world to do with the scripture, but it has everything to do with life. And that is this. Sometimes when you think you've reached your maximum courage, your maximum strength, your maximum, you make that tough face, that maximum toughness, that maximum resilience, and you think you can't get any tougher, any stronger, any more courageous, that's when it requires a step more. Let me tell you a quick thing. Combat, anybody that's ever been in combat, it is linear stress. It is unrelenting. I talked about surviving the next 30. Listen, combat is like that. It is the greatest stress ever foisted upon mankind. I'm telling you right now, it's something you don't wish on anybody. It is unlike anything you have ever experienced, and that's why when our returning combat vets come back, we got to treat them better. America, we got to treat our veterans better. Not just because I am one, I'm telling you right now, we got to treat our veterans better. It's the hardest thing ever. Very courageous. Sometimes that next step is to push it one step harder. You think you can't be strong in the first place. You can't be courageous in the first place. Then you find yourself in a place. This is a technique that I learned in counseling, where I would pick on one of my counselees that lets people roll all over them, and I'd just make them mad. Some people you can't get the truth out of them until they're mad. Do you ever know anybody something like that? Raise your hand. Right? They're all buttery, soft, and sweet and nice. You got to make them mad to get them to tell you the truth. I do that. I'm not going to lie. Now you know my secret. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful. Don't be stupid. Don't be foolish. Sometimes the greatest thing God wants us to do to everybody else is foolish. They look at you like you're nuts in your head. Why in the world are you doing that? Listen, you folks don't come here just because of all this amazing food, which I will have some when I finish. You don't come here for that. Maybe some. But it is awesome. I'm not going to lie. Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, New Jersey, you need to come here. 5 o'clock, we'll feed you well. It's not because of that. It's because how we strengthen one another. We help bear each other's burdens. Last week we prayed over and laid hands on a brother. This is, you don't get any better than this. Being very careful. Being careful. You can't be stupid. You can be strong and you can be courageous and you can run into battle talking about they'll never hit me, I'm super fast. What happened to Shawn? He thought he was faster than he was. He got hit. He dropped. Can't be stupid. Be strong in the face of difficulties. This is Joshua 9, in case you're keeping count. Because the Lord is with us to see us through them. Be strong in the face of difficulties. Listen, no point. I've said this a million times if I've said it once. I'm dyscalculous, so I don't know if I've said it a million times. I might have only said it once. But the point is I think I said it more than one time. And that is this. It is easy to be a, air quotes for the radio audience, strong Christian in church. It's easy to be strong in your faith when you're surrounded by a bunch of church folk. They know all the lingo. They have the fancy haircuts, the secret haircuts and the secret shoes and all of whatever else they carry. It's easy, isn't it? Not so easy when you're not in your crowd, in your tribe, is it? It's harder. That's why we come together, not just for the food, but we come to help strengthen each other in the face of difficulties. Listen, it's all well and good to talk tough after you've come through something and you made it through all right. It's a whole nother thing to be strong in the face of it. You say, well, I don't know how to do that. That is how you do it. I know that sounds crazy, isn't it? You're wearing a t-shirt right now that says, it is what it is. No truer statement. Sometimes it isn't what we thought it was. How many people have known somebody that weren't what we thought they were? We weren't what they said they were. They weren't what we hoped they were. But they still are what they are. It is what it is. That's just the facts. We can't run from these facts. We cannot run from those facts. Sometimes it is what it is. And it takes courage to see people for what they are and to see things. And you know what else? I think the hardest part is to see ourselves for what we are, to be honest with ourselves. Be strong in the face of difficulties because the Lord is with us to see us through them. Man, how many of you have been through the dark, long night? One of the longest days of my life, I was in a situation and I had to get from point A to point B. It was pitch black at night. We were under very difficult circumstances. And to get there, we had to get from point A to point B, which was a long distance. And we were in a lot of danger. It was the longest night. Myself and my buddy, all night long. We went all night long. We'd been up for 20 hours before. And we had to go all night long. I said this. He said at one point, he said, you think we're going to make it out of this? I said, yes, I do. He said, why? I said, I have faith in God and I have faith in you. We'll make it. And if we die, we're dying together. Be strong in the face of difficulties because the Lord is with us to see us through them. Sometimes the Lord sends us friends. The right kind of friend. Sometimes God sends us just the right person at just the right time. And that's how He's with us sometimes, to see us through. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Come on, it doesn't get any better than that. Well, there's no better encouragement than that. It didn't say some of the places. It says wherever you go. Joshua 1:18, whoever rebels against your commandment and disobeys your words, whatever you command him shall be put to death. Only be strong and courageous. You know how you get strong? You be strong. Sounds crazy. It is a technique. It is absolutely a technique. The way you get stronger by lifting weights is you start with a lighter weight. Sometimes you just start with the bar. Sometimes the hardest challenge that you could face at that time is this little bitty thing. And folks, if you give up, at that point, you will not make it through the greater challenges of life because they will get harder. They will get harder. I told you about my friend Timmy, over 600 pounds. He said, when it first started, he said, I actually challenged myself sometimes. There's no way I'm going to be able to eat all this. And he said it got easier. It got easier. You know what the flip side of that is? When we challenge ourselves to the good, we challenge ourselves to speak of our faith in front of people we know might not be receptive, probably won't be receptive when we do that. That's like lifting a weight and adding a little bit every time we do it. Little bit of weight, and then little by little, right? And that's not linear stress, that's oscillating stress, right? If you lift weights constantly your whole life, you put weight on the bar and you keep lifting it, you never stop. You think, well, I'm going to be so strong and so muscular and everything. No, you're going to break down. You have to oscillate that stress. You have to put it down. Take some deep breaths. Rest a little bit. Rehydrate. Feed your body. Rest your body. It's the same way with life. In order to be strong, sometimes you are weak. And stop trying to tell lies about your weak points. Right? Nowadays, all we have is words. In some cases, right? We may be close to somebody. They may live far away. How you doing? I'm terrible about this, folks. I am absolutely terrible. When I'm saying this to you, I'm saying it to me. If you communicate with friends or family or whoever around the world, wherever you are, people nowadays live all over the world, and be real with them. You be real with them, and they'll be real with you. And if they're not real with you, call them on it. Be strong, be courageous, and call them on it. Only be strong and courageous. Sometimes the weak reminds us. Sometimes we put the weight down a little bit when we're weak. We gain our breath and we lift again. Be strong to others as Joshua did to the children of Israel, and overcome all your enemies. Joshua 10:25. Be strong to others as Joshua did to the children of Israel. Listen, folks. There's nothing that will make you stronger than being strong for somebody else. Amen. I said it, I alluded to it a little bit before, but how many of you have ever been surprised how you handled something you didn't think you could handle? And looking back on you, wow. And most often you were doing so on behalf of someone else. That if you weren't there to help them, would not have help. Amazing. Joshua said to them, do not be afraid or dismayed. Be strong and courageous, for thus the Lord will do to all your enemies against whom you fight. Be strong, for the Lord bids thee fear not for those who oppose us, for he pledges himself not to fail us. Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong, for the Lord bids thee fear not for those who oppose us, for he pledges himself not to fail us. Man, there's nothing and nobody you can trust more than God. Isn't that something? He's never failed us once. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them, for it is the Lord your God who goes on with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Now listen, don't recreate God in your own image. How many in the room, if you're being honest, how many people have left you? How many people have let you down? Amen? Right? You've been left down. You've been left behind. You've been forsaken. Yeah. He will not leave nor forsake you. His record is pristine. Be strong, for the Lord hath sworn to give what he has promised. Here's the whole verse. This is Deuteronomy 31:7. Then Moses summoned Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and courageous, for you shall go with this people into the land that the Lord has sworn to their fathers to give them, and you shall put them in possession of it. Now, if there's ever a reason why the people of Israel and the people that are friends with our brothers, the Hebrew people, should never give another piece of land. And in fact, if you want to know, my belief is they should say, you know what? You guys have been jerks this whole time, blowing people up, I know you've heard me tell the story about the woman who, Hebrew, she's a Muslim and Palestinian, and came and went into the hospital. They saved her life. They saved her child's life. 4 years later, she came back laden with bombs to kill the very doctors who saved her and her children's life. Listen, don't give them an inch. In fact, take back every bit. Point out to the desert and say, go join your Arab brothers. You're not welcome here. You've proven yourself unworthy. I really believe that. I literally believe that. Get out. If you can't live peacefully with us, you got to go. Got to go. We'll help you pack. Why? Because that was land given by God to the Jews and no one else. Anyway, let me remind you of the verses, and I'll give you some more for free. Joshua 1:7, if you're writing these down. I'm about finished. Joshua 1:7, Joshua 1:9, 1 Samuel 4:9. Oh, I like this one. Hold on. I said I wasn't going to read them, but this is free. I won't charge. Take courage and be men. How many of you think in this country today we need men to start being men again? Amen? That was a pun I played right there. What's that? Stop being women. Listen, I love women. I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge, huge fan. But I don't want to be one. I don't want to be one. Men need to be men. One of the reasons why women have had to do what they've had to do is because men stopped being men. Starts in the pulpits too, by the way. Preachers, stop being effeminate from the pulpit. Preachers, stop with the skinny jeans and all that crazy business you're doing, and just, I mean, my goodness. I was reading the other day about he's a prominent postmodern evangelical, Western evangelical Christian. He actually gets a facial before every Sunday mess. He gets a facial. He pays the esthetician, is that what they're called? Does a facial on him before every service because he wants to look fresh, and that helps him feel fresh and his best. He feels his best. Yeah, amen? How about getting washed in that once in a while? Holy Spirit. Listen, be men. Be men. I won't belabor that, although I already have. Better to apologize than to ask permission some of these times. Take courage and be men, O Philistines, lest you become slaves to the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Be men and fight. Men, I'm telling you, if you're in a married situation and you hear a bump in the night, you had better not have legs, or your prosthesis better be across the room. Do not let your spouse get up and go check on the sound. I see this in movies nowadays, and I think to myself, my God, what has happened to men? What has happened to men? Anyway, that's a whole nother sermon. I better watch out. What's that? Higher education, amen. Lower expectations. Amen. 1 Kings 2:2. 1 Chronicles 22:13. 1 Chronicles 28:10. 2 Chronicles 32:7. 2 Chronicles 32:8. Boy, that's a good passage. I'm halfway tempted to read it, but I'm over time. Psalm 27:14. I'm going to read this one just for fun. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. Man, isn't it tough sometimes to wait for the Lord? Sometimes that's all the strength. All right. I've never done this. How many have ever known somebody that the packages were out there under the tree a few days before Christmas, and you saw a little loose piece of tape? I'm not pointing any fingers. A little loose piece of tape. You thought to yourself, I get a little closer. That wrapping paper looks a little thin. I think if I admire that package with my hands pressed down on it, I might be able to see what's in that box. All right? Waiting's the hard part. Sometimes that's the strongest you can be, is to wait. It takes strength to wait on the Lord. And sometimes, almost every time, I hate to say it, in the 11th hour. My mother's famous for saying this. He came in the 11th hour. When I knew I trusted and I had faith, and he was there for me. Psalm 27:14. Isaiah 35:3. Isaiah 35:4. Let me read this one to you. And he said, O man greatly loved, fear not, peace be with you, be strong and of good courage. And as he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, let my Lord speak, for you has strengthened me. Let me just say this about that. Sometimes, you know what we have to do to be stronger? Listen. Listen and let him speak. Here's the thing. Heavenly Father will not interrupt you. He will not interrupt you. He is a gentleman. Until it is time to interrupt everything else and come back to this third rock from the sun and take charge. Anyway, there's a whole bunch more, and we just are completely and totally out of time. I appreciate you listening. Listen, there's a lot of folks out there. I said it last week and the week before, and you might wonder why I'm saying it. And I'm saying it because it's important. And my gold stars out there that are listening, and I know several of you are, it's a hard time. Christmas is a hard time. How far away is Christmas? We're close, right? A week from tomorrow. So there's a lot of people, and not just gold stars, but how many of you, the wreaths across America? I believe you were probably involved in that. Amazing. Wreaths across America. Don't let yourself think that that's not important. There's probably no tougher time of the year other than the day that your loved one was killed in combat than Christmas. Right? Because we think about Christmas and Thanksgiving, we think everybody's coming home. Thanksgiving is the busiest travel day of the year, isn't it? And then Thanksgiving is second. We all go home. Somebody's not coming home. And it's hard every year. Some of you lost people that are very near and dear to you. And it's a hard time. I encourage you to reach out to your friends and the people you love, but also reach out to God. He will give you strength. Here's the secret. You have to ask for it. The secret to being strong is asking God for strength. And he's told us in these scriptures that he will give it, no matter what. God bless you and keep you. We will be talking to you very soon.
Dr. Greener returns next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in the meantime, he'll be working to restore your freedom and your liberty. He will engage in the collision of faith and politics for you and with you. In the meantime, remember to follow him on Twitter at the Ninja Pastor and follow him on Facebook. Dr. Greener's controversial book, Excellence Killed the Church, How Mediocrity is Destroying America, is available on Amazon and at other fine booksellers. Or you can get a copy directly through his website, www.drshawngreener.com, where you can also listen to interviews and speeches and messages free of charge. Show archives are available on iTunes through drshawngreener.com.